Okay, so let's talk about how to set up YNAB for your business budget. Now, in this, we are using this modified profit first method where you can categorize and allocate your revenue without having to have 19 different bank accounts because that's just crazy, not necessary. So when you open up a new budget in YNAB, you are going to give it a name. So I put Sample LLC, but you can put the name of your business, right? Because you can have a budget for your personal, for your business, for all of it. You can change the currency display. Just know that it's only display. It doesn't actually do any kind of currency calculations or anything like that. It's just about how it will display for you. And edit that and apply. And so when you start your budget, it will come up with standard categories, and they're usually household related, right? So it's going to have like rent and utilities, right? Just click on every category group name and click delete. That will delete everything underneath it, and you can start fresh. Then you're going to add a category group for each of these three major categories, and then add individual categories underneath them for each of the things that you need within your business budget. So the three major category groups that I do is placeholders, or you can call them buckets, you can call it whatever you want. Monthly expenses and true expenses. So placeholders, this is where you're going to look at the percentages that you want to use to allocate your revenue. You're going to create little buckets for each one of those. So taxes, about 25%, profit is 5%, operating expenses, maybe 20, 25, depends on what you need, 30 if you have higher overhead. And then the rest is your owner's draw or your salary. For me personally, I also separate that out into an extra 10% for my tithe. So you can do that or not, up to you. So you're going to first create these categories. And when you create the names of them, put the percentage so that you have it right there in front of you. And that just makes it easier to look at. So that's one. The next one is monthly. Monthly expenses, this is stuff that you pay consistently every single month. That is a recurring expense. Personally, interest and fees is going to change every month depending on what kinds of things you have interest in things for. So I'm going to move that down to true expenses. True expenses are things that change every month. Depends on what happened, depends on the things that you needed to buy. It's not a recurring expense. So monthly would be like website domain hosting. Maybe you've got a CRM, maybe you pay for Zoom. All of those things are going to go under monthly expenses. Maybe you have a standard expense, like a subscription that you do every single month. So change the names of these to whatever it is that you have consistently every month. And it's okay to get some advice from your CPA on what they want your categories named, because a lot of times they don't want the category named Zoom. They might want it named technology subscriptions, right? So just kind of go with that, but go with whatever really makes sense to you. And then same thing under true expenses, you might have advertising and marketing, annual expenses, things that come out once a year, or maybe once a quarter, maybe quarterly taxes, supplies and equipment, travel, meals. You might have gifts, client gifts, referral gifts, card processing fees is one you definitely need to have in here. Anything that kind of comes up for you. The good news is if you get an expense come through that you didn't have a category for, you can just create one. So it's okay if you don't get it all right to begin with. Just do your best to come up with what makes sense to you. So that's your first step, is get your categories in place. The second step is going to be to add your accounts. Now, it's best to do linked so that it'll pull it all in from your bank for you. But if for some reason your bank doesn't connect or won't connect, it's okay to do unlinked. You'll just kind of have a little bit more manual work to do, but highly recommend doing it linked. Once you link the account, so I'm doing unlinked, so I have to go through the login. So you'll log into your account, you give it all that, and you'll choose which specific account you want. And then you're going to come to this part where it wants to know the details of the account. So it's going to ask what type of account that you're adding. So most people have like a business checking, maybe a business savings, maybe even a business credit card. So what you need to know is that anything that any transaction that you're going to need to categorize and track for the sake of taxes, you want to be on budget. Any transaction that is just kind of something that's happening, like moving money in and out of savings, doesn't necessarily need to be tracked. Or doesn't need to be categorized. And so you're going to do it as just a tracking account. So your business checking 100% should be up there under budget. And then you're going to put in whatever your current account balance is. We'll say it's $500. Next. Then add another account, linked if you can. And let's say you have a business credit card and you put a couple of expenses every now and then on your business credit card. So those expenses that you purchase need to be categorized for the sake of your records, right? So we're going to put credit card, just say business credit card. And let's say we do a decent job of paying it off every month. Let's say we have like, I don't know, $150 on it. It's going to ask you how you want to deal with taking care of your balance and how you want to pay that off regularly. So I'm going to put that we want to budget for the entire balance, meaning we want to make sure that we take care of that full balance every single month. Now, if you're not sure which one you want to do, just do skip this for now and you can do it all manually. But this is going to give you prompts to say, hey, you still have a balance on your credit card and you said you wanted to pay it off. Make sure that you budget for that, right? So I'm going to hit next. And then I'm going to add another for the savings account. Like I said, if for the savings account, unless you're actually doing transactions out of that account, like paying your taxes out of it, then it doesn't need to be tracked as far as categories go. It doesn't need to be on budget. If you're just using it as a place to store money for other things, and you're going to bring that money maybe back into your checking account before you spend it, just do it as a tracking. So I'm going to call it an asset because it's positive. It's good money. So it's an asset. I'm going to call that business savings. And let's say I've been awesome and I've got $1,000 saved up. Okay. All right, so you can see all of our accounts are over here, which is awesome. So one thing to know is any accounts you put on budget, any cash you've got, it is going to want you to budget it, meaning it wants you to give it a job. So this is when you first start this, you get to decide what to do with the balance that's in your business checking account. You can either put it all in one category like operating expenses, you can divvy it out based on these percentages. You can do whatever kind of makes sense to you. I'm just going to say, you know what, we've intentionally started this account with 500. It's all intended to be available for operating expenses. So I'm going to put it there. Okay. So allocate the money that's in that big box. Give it a job. If you don't want some of it to be spent, then you can put it in maybe the profit category, put a little bit of it in profit and a little bit of it in operating, just so that that profit bucket is intended to kind of be held onto, right? But you get to decide how you're going to allocate that money that's already in your checking account, okay? So the next thing is, let's look at what happens when you get income, okay? So let's say I sold a good size coaching package, and so I get a payment in from Square or Stripe or whatever. I recommend that you create payees that are specific to the type of packages that you're selling, so that when you run your reports, you can actually see exactly what kinds of things that you were selling. So maybe you got a payment from Stripe for a group coaching program. Okay. Anytime you get a payment in, that payment is partially income and partially card processing fees, right? Because Stripe already took out your money. So you're actually going to want to split it. Now, with Stripe, you may have to go into Stripe to look and see exactly how much was actually charged in the form of card processing fees. So I'm just going to make up a number. I'm going to say we brought in $985, that the original charge was actually $1,000, and that I discovered it was $15 worth of card processing fees. Okay. So each one of these needs a category. So the $1,000 was the original charge. That's the income I got. And then card processing fees was the 15. So you're able to split it that way. Again, you may have to go into Stripe to see what those actual breakdowns were for that. But you're going to click save there. And so now we've got $1,000 worth of income and $15 worth of expenses, right? Because we had card processing fees there. So I need to first allocate the $1,000 before I do anything else. First, allocate the money. Now, here's the cool part about YNAB. It knows how to do math. So rather than try to do the 25% math yourself, although that is an easy number to do with 1,000, we're going to just do math. So you're going to say 1,000 times 0.25 for 25% equals. Okay, and then it puts that in there. Now, this one already has a number in it. So instead of just typing in the numbers, we're going to hit plus, and then I'm going to put it in parentheses. 700, oh, sorry, not 750. 1,000, the original 1,000 times 0.05 for 5%. Plus 1,000 times 0.20 for 20%. And then I can do plus or not. This is 0, so it's fine. 1,000 times 0.4, and then 1,000 times 0.1, or you can just see whatever's left, which is 100. Okay, so we now have zero to be budgeted because we've allocated our money into our placeholders or buckets or whatever you want to call them. Okay, so these are now the budget buckets that you can work from. So if you say, how much money do I possibly owe to taxes right now? About $250. How much do I have available in my profit category? About 150. Okay, cool. Profit's a good category. Profit is good for paying down debts. Profit is good for maybe paying bonuses quarterly, or for saving up for larger investments. Profit's a great bucket. Operating expenses is for exactly what it sounds like. And then I've got a salary I can take home of about 400 bucks. And I have $100 that I need to send to the church if you're doing a tithe, right? If you're not, then all 500 is your salary, right? So these are the buckets you work from now. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go, okay, I spent $15 on card processing fees. I need to budget this. If you come in here and you just type in $15 into the budget, it's going to be mad at you because your budget bucket up here is already empty because you already allocated it, right? So rather than do it that way, you're going to click over here on this $15 and it's going to say, which category do you want to cover this $15 with? And you're going to say, well, obviously, operating expenses. Y'all, this is just like as if you had an operating expenses account and you paid for it out of that, right? That's all we're doing is we're just kind of shifting the money around digitally. Okay, except we only have to have one bank account, which is really nice, right? Makes life a little easier. So we've now covered this spending right there from our operating expenses budget. You can see it went down by $15 and this is covered and we're good. As long as everything's green, you're good to go. So why is this yellow? Well, this category down here, this is our credit card payment category, is yellow because you told it you wanted to pay off your entire balance, right? So it's going to say, it wants you to budget another $150 in order to reach your goal, right? Now, if I come in here again and I just type in 150, it's going to be mad because I don't have that to give. Instead, I can say, you know what? It's a debt payoff and I'm going to do that out of my profit bucket. So you can actually click on your profit bucket and say, I'm going to move that whole 150 down to credit card payments so that I can make that payment. So now it's not there in my profit bucket, but I have it available to make a payment. See that? Now, what if I actually bought something on my credit card? So let's say I went to Amazon and typos, and I bought maybe some office supplies for $50 and I spent my credit card to do it. So I'm going to hit save. Now, what you may not be able to see because of my picture is right around this corner here, up in the right-hand corner, it actually says you've overspent by $50. That's because we haven't actually budgeted for those office supplies yet. So let me show you what this looks like. Because we're working with the buckets or the category or the placeholders, we need to first address the fact that we've got $50 of overspending here. And it's orange because it says you overspent it on credit. So just click it, same thing. Hey, you spent $50 on office supplies. Which bucket do you want to cover it out of? And you're going to say operating expenses. Okie dokie. Okay. So now that that $50 is budgeted for or covered with money, it now knows that you have an additional $50 that you need to pay towards the credit card. And you now have the ability to just take $200 out of your checking account and just pay it to your credit card because you've already allocated it. You've already dedicated that money to those expenses. So now we just come into checking and you're going to say payments and transfers to the business credit card. And it's going to outflow out of your checking account for $200. Save. So now you've made your credit card payment. Your business credit card is down to zero. It sees that here that your payment is done and made, and you are all completely balanced out for the month. So then when you make another payment, when you make another expense on your credit card, same thing, allocate it using operating expenses or whatever it is. So you pay your taxes on your credit card, allocate it using your taxes fund, right? And then make the payment to your credit card. Easy peasy, because the money's there. The money's already there for it, okay? So this is beautiful because what can happen now once you are doing this is you can actually run reports. The income versus expense report is basically your profit and loss. And because you've given all of your income sources a specific name, you can actually see in detail what kinds of places you got income from. And then you can also see, I just pulled it down to 1 month so it's easier to see. You can also see what type of expenses you actually had for the month, and it will literally line it out that way. Now you can export this into an Excel spreadsheet. It does, it's not formatted. So you will need to kind of format it and look at the different categories to make it prettier, but it does export for you into an Excel spreadsheet. So this is basically your profit and loss. You can look at your average spending based on your different categories, right? Card processing fees versus supplies. And then you can also look at the net worth of your business, the net value of your business based on the amount of cash you have versus what you still owe on your credit card. So you can run reports in here, which is amazing as well. All accounts is exactly what it sounds like. It's literally every single transaction in every single account. So that is how to set up your business budget. The more you do this, the more often it happens, the easier. The most complicated part of this, aside from just the allocation of the money, which is just algebra, is you may have to run into your payment process just to see what your card processing fees were. But you can always go and do that in batches, right? So go ahead and pull in the money and then go back and shift it around to fix the numbers. But it is a great way to do it without having to have a billion bank accounts. It is a great way to do it to see what money you have allocated and available to you for different things and to be able to keep track. The nice thing too is this system will start to show you the average that you have been able to put into each bucket each month, the average that you've pulled out of it, and what you've been able to put in there. So when you come in here, you go, you know what? I have put in an average of $500 a month every single month into operating expenses. That means I know I consistently have $500 a month I can spend. And so then you really know what additional things you can do in your business. Maybe you can pay for a VA. Maybe you come in here and you find out you've got an additional $1,200 a month that you're putting into your operating expenses account each month, meaning you have an extra $1,200 a month to spend. Maybe you get to get a video editor or a VA or a community manager, right? All the things that you're wanting to do for your business. Now you can see the average budgeted over the last few months and really have a picture of what's happening in your business. And be able to kind of predict what you'll be able to create moving forward, which is fun. And of course, you'll get to see this number get higher and higher as you are racking up those extra operating expense funds. So, all right, let me know if you have any questions. This is just kind of your initial setup. As you use it, as you work through it, it gets easier and easier. It makes more and more sense once you have your actual numbers working in it, okay? All right, hope that was helpful.